Okay, today we're going to discuss SMART goals, SAM, and assessments. And the point of this lesson is we're going to take that learning experience to sort of thinking about what we want our students to know, ways that we can deliver that information, and then the ways that we can assess that information at the end. By the end of today's lesson, students will be able to write a SMART goal, explain the basics of SAM, and understand when to use different types of assessments. First, let's do some goal setting. Let's talk about SMART goals. SMART goals are a very effective way to create meaningful goals for student learning. It is important to set goals for learning because they help both the student and the teacher know the objective and the desired outcome of the lesson, unit, or course. The best way to do this is with SMART goals. SMART is an acronym, and it stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So let's take a look at each letter individually and what it stands for. S stands for specific. This has to do with the 5W questions. When writing a goal, you want to think, what is it that I want to accomplish? Why is this goal important? Who is involved? Where is it located? And which resources or limits are involved? The M stands for measurable. This is how many, how much, or how will I know when it's accomplished? A stands for attainable. When setting this goal, you want to think to yourself, how can I accomplish this goal? And how realistic is this goal based on other constraints such as financial factors and time? The R is for relevant. When setting this goal, ask yourself, does this seem worthwhile? Is this the right time to do it? Does this match our other efforts and needs? And am I the right person to reach for this goal? And also, is the goal applicable in the current climate, socioeconomic or timely? Finally, the last letter T is for timely. You might also hear time bound as well. And that just says, does this seem worthwhile or is this the right time? Does it match our other efforts or needs? And am I the right person to do this at this time? So let's pause for a moment to look at a real application of the SMART goal principles. Let's imagine that you're a small business owner who wants to create more followers on Instagram. So the goal, I want more followers. Now, that doesn't tell us very much. So let's make it a SMART goal. I want to grow my company's Instagram to 100 followers by April 30th, 2022 by posting every day, creating engaging content, and offering Instagram only discounts. This goal is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So it suits all of our SMART goal objectives. Before we move on to the second part of our module, let's go ahead and stop here so that you can answer two questions about SMART goals. So now let's talk about SAM. What is SAM?
According to Kevin Bierholtz, SAM, which stands for Successive Approximation Model, serves as an iterative design and delivery model to meet the immediate demands of usable training collateral. The SAM model for instructional design is pretty new. SAM began when Dr. Michael W. Allen outlined the model in his book, Leaving ADDIE for SAM, an agile model for developing the best learning experiences, which was written in 2012. SAM is not the first learning methodology to challenge ADDIE, but it is one of the most popular.
One of the best ways to talk about SAM is to discuss the difference between the SAM model and the ADDIE model. The SAM model is much more iterative. ADDIE works more of a waterfall model. The waterfall method basically stacks all the steps of design behind the waterfall, and then finally a project is created, making water spill over the sides and create a waterfall effect. While this process has been around for some time, it has been faulted for being too linear of a process. SAM, on the other hand, is iterative. This simply means that the process is repeated over and over again. There are two types of SAM models, simply called SAM1 and SAM2. SAM1 is for smaller projects. It basically has three steps: develop, evaluate, and design. This is a process that is recursive and repeats itself as many times as needed. This is good for smaller projects or groups. SAM2 is better for larger projects. You can think of it as SAM1 on steroids. It consists of 8 iterative design steps spread across 3 phases: preparation, iterative design, and iterative development. SAM2 includes a very interesting savvy start stage in its preparation phase after some initial research is done on the projects, which contains a brainstorming session. During that time, they are constantly reviewing and redesigning the prototypes. Finally, designers create an alpha, a beta, and finally a gold product, which they can roll out for use. Okay, to sum up, SAM is a simplified version of the ADDIE model, which is designed to elicit feedback and build working models earlier in the process. The model uses recursive rather than linear process for course development, and the simple SAM model is composed of 3 parts: preparation, iterative design, and iterative development. The key word here is iterative, which is the basis for this model and signals each step is meant to be repeated and revisited. So let's pause for a second so you can answer a few questions about the SAM model. Finally, in the last part of our module, we're going to talk about what are the different types of assessments and how should they be used. The first is a diagnostic assessment. You will also hear instructors call these pre-assessments. These assessments are very useful so that you can access a student's prior knowledge. This is important because you want to know where to begin with a student. Do they have any knowledge of the subject? If you don't do these assessments, you could easily assume that the student has a knowledge base that they don't possess, and the student would be lost. Or you may be reteaching material that the student already knows and risk boring them. This allows the teacher to start the education process at the correct point. The second type of assessment is a formative assessment. These are smaller, low-stakes assessments. Instructors can use these along the way in a lesson because it allows the teacher to adjust the timing of the lesson. A formative assessment is like a check-in along the way that can let the instructor know how much of the new information the student is retaining. Are they moving too fast? Are they moving too slow? A formative assessment is a great way of judging the timing of a lesson and what the students are actually learning. The final type of assessment is a summative assessment. The summative is the final assessment of the student's learning. This is the chance for the student to demonstrate how much they've learned over the course of the instructional period. This is often in the form of a final exam, a longer paper, or a large project. This demonstrates the knowledge the learner has gained along the way and can be a good measuring stick to see how effective the lesson was. To sum up, the pre-assessment tells the instructor what the student knows before they start. It happens before the instruction begins. Formative assessment allows the teacher to know how much of the information the student is picking up along the way and if they should change the timing or focus of the lesson. This happens while instruction is occurring. Finally, the summative assessment is the final evaluation, so the instructor can see what the student has learned. It happens at the end of the instructional period.
Okay, let's stop here and do a formative assessment so we can find out what you know about assessment tools.
Our lesson today has been about 3 main topics: SMART goals and how to set them, a brief summary of the SAM model of creating a product, and 3 different types of assessments to use to measure student learning. Here are a list of references that I used in creating this project.